ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्दस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनाशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनेति नामिने। नमस्ते सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्देशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम पदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामने गौतुसे नमः। वंचकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्यैव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धु जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमस्तुते। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरि प्रिये। जय श्री कृष्णा चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। We welcome everyone once again for today's discussion on Upadeshamrita. We're going to start our discussion from text number 8. Let offer our prayers to the six Goswamis, and with the blessings, we'll try to discuss 8th verse onwards today. Nana Shastra Vichane Kanipano Sahadharma Samsapakam Lokanam Hitakarino Tribhuvane Mahanyo Sharanyakaro Radha Krishna Padaravindra Bhajana Nahandena Mattalikayo Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujago Shri Jiva Gopalakam Vande Rupa Sanatano Raghujago Shri Jiva Gopalakam. Hare Krishna, everyone. So we are reading from, or we are discussing Nectar of Instruction that has 11 verses, and we have discussed, if I'm correct, up to the 7th verse. Although for the 7th verse, which I said is the pivotal verse of this text, at least for the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhaktas, is to be able to chant and chant regularly and chant attentively and chant at least at the Namabhat stage. 3 stages of chanting were described by Srila Prabhupada here while quoting our previous acharyas, Namaprad, Namabhas, and Shuddhanam. I did confess that what I really wanted to speak in this discussion, I couldn't cover it last time. Maybe sometime in future we can do that. But I wanted to speak about these 3 stages, Namaprad, Namabhas, Shuddhanam. What is it? Based on the writings, particularly Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and also particularly this 10 Nam Aparad. What are those Nam Aparad? Often we recite that, but details are at times missing. What is it? So we can be attentive and careful on not committing those aparad. Just to give a little background, what is Nama Aparad, Nama Bhas chanting? What I understood from my reading of Harinam Chintamani, and this subject matter is a little bit discussed again in Bhajan Lalasa. I didn't read the whole thing, but I read sections which were pertaining to this. So there, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions Nama Aparad, which is filled with, the 10 offenses. Whereas in case of Namabhas, it is said, analogy is given while describing that literature. Haridas Thakur is speaking to Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Analogy is given is just like Krishna is like Krishna Surya Samaha. Krishna is considered to sun. However, his sunlight is not able to reach the Jivatma. Or the holy name is like the sun, and the auspiciousness, merciful rays of the holy name are not able to touch the Jivatma. Why? Two situations. One is because of fog, and second because of clouds, rain clouds. So fog, Haridas Thakur says to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, compares to ignorance. Ignorance is of four types. Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes. First is not to understand. It's called Tattva Vibhramaha. Who am I? Who is Krishna? What is our relationship? Like this. And there's also one more ignorance is to consider the holy names of the Lord and Lord to be different. That is also a symptom of ignorance. So this gets destroyed. In fact, even aparad, even the cloud, which refers to aparad, actually, they also get rectified by taking a shelter of bona fide guru. So let's complete the whole equation here. So the fog compares to the ignorance, and the clouds compare to the uh, not aparad, sorry, four anathas. What are the four types of anathas? Bhaktivinoda Thakur talks about Hriday Daurbalyam, weakness of the heart, like this. Um, just skip my hand 1 second. There's a beautiful shloka. I'll just recite the shloka that will make it easy. He says there are four kinds of anarthas, chaturvida. And he says, Maya mugdhasya jivasya neonatha chaturvidha hridadar balyam chaparadho asatrishna tattva vibramaha. Hedadabalyam, weakness of heart. Cha aparado, offenses. Seva prad, it also includes nama prad like that. Asatrishna, hankering for the temporary things. And tattva vipramaha. Tattva vipramaha, not having a clear understanding of one's own identity. This is not, this is, am I the part and parcel of the Lord or am I the Lord? Just like my other things. Like this, these are the four things. And all of this ignorance and all of these four chaturvidha anarthas are resolved, Bhaktivinoda Thakur or Haridas Thakur says, and Bhaktivinoda Thakur writes, by taking a shelter of bona fide guru. Like that. So that was the subject matter which Srila Prabhupada quotes in the seventh verse also. Be careful of avoiding offenses, and being situated in Namabhas is far better than chanting at the Namaprat stage. And when one continues the Namabhas stage, krama, gradually, with attentive chanting, under the guidance and blessings of Guru, one will eventually reach to the stage of Shuddhanam. Like that was the discussion. And now we come to text number 8. Text number 8, it is said, Iti Upadesha Saram. This is the essence of all instructions. The first 7 verses of Upadeshamrita talks about Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti or Sadhana Bhakti, and text 8 talks about Raganuga Bhakti. So why I got delayed is because I was trying to prepare some presentation. While preparing a presentation, I did prepare a presentation, but unfortunately I forgot to include the shloka itself. So I hope you have a copy and we can read. I just realized, oh, I didn't put the shloka only. I put all of the shlokas, but not this one. Anyways, text number 8. Tannama Rupa Charitadi Surukirtananu Smatyo Kramena Rasana Manasi Niyochya Tisham Rajetadανuragi Jahananugami Kalam Nayad Akhilam Iti Upadesha Sadhu. What would mean? Tat of Lord Krishna, Nam, the holy name, Rupa, form, Charit, Adi, character, pastimes, and so forth. Adi means, other things. Sukirtana, In discussing or chanting nicely, anusmrityaha, in remembering, kramena, gradually, rasana, the tongue, manasi, and the mind, niyojya, engaging, tishtan, residing, vraje, and vraja, tat, to Lord Krishna, anuragi, attached, jana, persons, anugami, following, kalam, time, nayat, should utilize, akhilam, full, iti, upadeshasaram. This is the essence of all advice. What is the essence of all advice? Tannamarupa charitadi sukirtananu smartyo kramena rasana manasi niyojya. One should engage one's mind and constantly remembering the glories of the Lord. Nam, Rupa, Guna, Leela, etc. Second, Tishthan Vajeta Dhanuragi Jananugami, and reside in a holy place of a Vrajabhumi. And what to do? Tad Anuragi Jananugami, and serve at Vrindavan under the guidance of Anuragi. Take shelter of Anuragi, who is Ragatmika Bhakta, and Jananugami, under his guidance, Anugami, render service. What render service? Kalam Nayad Akhilam, without wasting any time, or putting other way around, Kalam Nayad Akhilam, utilizing every moment in cultivating the remembrance of the Lord. Iti Upadesha Saram. This is the essence of the whole instruction. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Translation. Would anyone like to read the translation, please? Can our yes, can our co-host manage this, because I will not be able to see when the screen is shared. You can call on the names, please.
Translation by Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. The essence of all advice is that one should utilize one's full time, 24 hours a day, in nicely chanting and remembering the Lord's divine name, transcendental form, qualities, and eternal pastimes, thereby gradually engaging one's tongue and mind. In this way, one should reside in Vraja, Goloka Vrindavan Dham, and serve Krishna under the guidance of devotees. One should follow in the footsteps of the Lord's beloved devotees who are deeply attached to his devotional service.
Hare Krishna. So, two or three very important points have been discussed. It's not such a long purport. Uh, Prabhupada writes just hardly one page long purport, and then after that, Srila Prabhupada quotes Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Two, three important things. We'll just quickly go through the verse purport, and then I kind of summarized everything on a presentation. We'll take a look at it, and as per required, we'll have a discussion. So, two, three important points is what is this verse saying? What is iti upadesha charam? What is the essence of all instruction? Essence of all instruction in one way is antakale chamameva smaranmuktva kalevara. Hare Krishna. To be able to remember the Lord at the time of passing away or giving up the body. Antakale chamameva. And to be able to remember the Lord, we really need to do, we need, really need to train the mind from now onwards. So therefore, the subject, this particular verse, Iti Upadesha Saram, talks about how one should engage and thoughtfully train our mind in always remembering the Nama, Rupa, Charita, or Guna Adi Lila of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Now, how to do it? Best if that can be done while deciding in a holy place like Vrindavan, which is surcharged with devotional ecstasies. Therefore, it becomes very easy for us to chant, remember, and glorify the Lord. But how to do it? It has to be done taking a shelter of Anuragi, taking a shelter, becoming an Anugami of an Anuragi, of an advanced devotee who is himself a Ragatmika Bhakta. And like that, we can graduate from Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti. What's the difference between Vaidhi or Sadhana Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti? Uh, Sadhana Bhakti is largely done under rules and regulations. Hare Krishna. Please help. What is this message? Oh, attendance link is not working. All right, all right. I have no idea of technical thing. So I guess don't worry too much about it. Uh, if in case you're doubtful, you can take a snapshot of you attending the class, and in case for that class your attendance is missing, you can share the screenshot. Okay, don't worry. If in case we are so much occupied, our mind is so much occupied with attendance, so I don't think so we'll be really able to pay attention on what we're discussing here right now. So attention should be on the subject, not on the attendance. So what was I saying? The key points over here, yeah, is to train our mind, is to always engage our mind in the best way. How to do it, where to do it, is reciting Tishtan Braje, by residing in a place like holy place like Vrindavan, which is such a devotional devotional ecstasies. But how to do it? Can we do it on our own? It should be under the guidance. So yeah, I was speaking about sadhana bhakti, raganuga bhakti, sadhana bhakti. We discussed nectar devotion also, and for those we haven't covered, we'll be covering in future. Rupa Goswami talks about sadhana bhakti is done under the rules and regulations and instructions. We chant because it is Guru's order. However, moving on to the Raganuga stage, there develops a natural affection and attraction. A devotee loves to chant, devotee loves to hear, and how to cultivate that affection for the Lord is what is the subject matter. Tishthan vajeta danuragi jananugami. So what is happening in this verse? The flow of the verses. Smratyo kramena rasana manasi niyoja. Gradually develop, fill your mind with spiritual thoughts or thoughts of remembrance of the Lord. Our mind, we have been in this material world for God knows for how long, and our mind is a storehouse of impressions of all the things that we have done. And in general, in conditioned nature, uh, we are but naturally attracted. We have a strong affinity for asat or temporary things. And now to give up attachment to those and to hold on to spiritual vibrations or spiritual subject matter, that requires training. Therefore, training of the mind is mentioned, and best that should be done under Ragatmika Bhakta, and where to be done? In Vrindavan. Like that is the subject matter of this particular verse. With what goal in mind? Antakale jamameva smaran muktva kalevaram. Because at the time of death, what all we have done in our life, all that really begins to haunt us. All those samskaras, all that experiences, at times, even forget about at the time of death, even today, a large part of the population is psychologically disturbed. They don't know what they speak. There's a big disconnect between what they think and what they act or what they speak. It's just, it leads to like a, what you can say, hurricane of thoughts, different thoughts in the mind, and person doesn't know really what to speak or what to do. So to control this mind, that's a point is being discussed here. All right, puppet. So puppet begins with controlling the mind, the need for controlling the mind, like this, and then Prabhupada takes it to the subject matter of what are the four-step process for attaining perfection. So let's take a look at the first paragraph. We can be quick with reading this. Since the mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. All of you have done discussed Bhagavad Gita, right? Where does Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, the mind can act as one's enemy, mind can act as one's friend. Anyone remembers? Can we close the screen, please, so I can see devotees? Okay, we have hands up. Mother Anjana, Mother Kamalika, Mother Leela. Okay, she took off her head. Right on time, I was about to call her name. Okay, yes, Mother Rati Manjari. Where does Krishna says in Bhagavad
Chanchala hi
Gita?
mana Krishna.
Huh?
That one? Chanchala hi mana Krishna. His the
Not
mind is.
exactly. There's the nature of the mind is being described, but you're close. Is the sixth chapter, verses 5 and 6. That's where Bandhuratmat Manastasya.
Mm.
That's a shloka. Fine. So, okay, now we can read it. Matanjana, your hand is up. Please go ahead and read out the paragraph. Since the mind may be one's enemy
Since
or
the
one's friend.
mind may be one's enemy or one's friend, one has to train the mind to become his friend. The Krishna conscious movement is especially meant for training the mind to be always engaged in Krishna's business. The mind contains hundreds and thousands of impressions, not only of this life, but also of many, many lives of the past. These
Okay.
Since
Sorry for interrupting. I'll just maybe just a little bit interrupt so we follow through what's the proper going on. The very say first thing, why to train the mind, Papa says, because mind can act as a friend and enemy. That's the first thing. Second, just what Madanjana read is about impressions and contradictory pictures. That's the second point. Now, please continue. Prabhupada say the third point.
these impressions sometimes come in contact with one another and produce contradictory pictures. In this way, the mind's function can become dangerous for a conscious soul.
All right.
Students of
That's the third point. Why to train the mind? Because of this all varying impressions, it can become dangerous for a conditioned soul. So mind is dangerous nonetheless. So we need to train it. Then Prabhupada talks about why to train the mind is the function of mind or the role the mind plays at the time of death. Yamyamapi smaran bhavam tayate antikalanam. And that's what Prabhupada speaks. And why to train the mind? The fifth point Prabhupada makes in the purport is to be able to always think about Krishna. Antakale cha mahameva smaranukta kalevaram. This is the flow of the purport. Please continue now.
Whenever in Bhagavad Gita 8.6 it is said, whatever state of being one remembers when he quits his body, that state he will attain without fail. At the time of death, the mind and intelligence of a living entity create the subtle form of a certain type of body for the next. If the mind suddenly thinks of something not very congenial, one has to take a corresponding birth in the next life. On the other hand, if one can think of Krishna at the time of death, he can be transferred to the spiritual world, Goloka Vrindavan. This process of transmigration is very subtle. Therefore, Srila Rupa Goswami advised devotees to train their minds in order that they will be unable to remember anything other than Krishna. Similarly, the tongue should be trained to speak only of Krishna and to taste only Krishna Prasada. Srila Rupa Goswami further advises Tishan Vraje. One should live in
Tishtan Vaje.
Vrindavana or any part of Vrajabhumi. Vrajabhumi or the land of Vrindavana is supposed to be 84 kosas in area. One kosa equals to 2 square miles. When one makes Vrindavan his residence, he should take shelter of an advanced devotee there. In this way, one should always think of Krishna and his pastimes.
Hare
This-
Krishna. Okay,
Hare-
continue. If you have, in this way, go ahead.
A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Vrija and
All
always
right. This is next paragraph now, right? Okay. So once again, very important points have been mentioned. This whole verse in more or less is summarized by Prabhupada in this paragraph itself. So why should we train our mind? The 5 things Prabhupada mentioned here is mind can act as a friend or enemy. Mind carries all those contradictory impressions of all the past activities that we have done. Thus, mind becomes extremely dangerous. Fourth, the function of mind at the time of death. Yam Yam Vapi Smaran Bhavam, Prabhupada course. And the fifth, actually, the goal why we want to train mind is to be always able to remember Krishna like this. Now, to be able to do so, what should we do? Prabhupada says, not Prabhupada says, the verse says actually, to be able to train the mind, not train the mind, to be able to attain the ultimate goal, which we all say Krishna Prema. For that, we need to train the mind. So, what we need to do, this verse talks about 5 things we need to do. First, reside in Vraja. Second, remember Krishna. Third, follow in the footsteps of Anuragi, Jananugami, Anuragi. Fourth, follow in the footsteps and also render service and the guidance. And fifth is serve. Kalam Nayad Akilam, without wasting any time like this. So here, Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Prabhupada quotes and he says, Krishnam smaran janam chasya, preshtam nijasamnihitam, tat katharatas chasam, kuryad vasam raje sada. A devotee should always reside in the transcendental realm of Vraja and always engage in Krishnam smaran janam chasya preshtam, which means the remembrance of Sri Krishna and his beloved associates. By following in the footsteps of such associates and by entering under the eternal guidance, one can acquire an intense desire that is called as Lolium, to serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, to begin, what we need is attitude, but to progress, what we need is greed, intense greed or Lolium. That is what is being talked about. So, whenever we have such discussion, it always leads to one very important question. Oho, Rupa Goswami said, Iti Upadesha. What is the essence of all instructions? Tishtan Vaje. Tatanuragi Jananugami. One should go and reside in Vrindavan. And our own Acharya, the founder Acharya, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ji, who was actually residing in Vrindavan, he left Vrindavan and he traveled all over the world. So, what is going on? On top of it, well, we can reconcile for him. He is a pure devotee, so wherever he went, he created Vrindavan. Now, we are not instructed or we are not told to move to Vrindavan. If in case you go and talk to to your temple authorities, वो बोलेंगे बेटा आपका वृंदावन यही है. Pune is Vrindavan, Chapati is Vrindavan, Dubai is Vrindavan, London is Vrindavan, and you will be wondering, London में आज तक सूर्य उदय नहीं हुआ. How is it Vrindavan? You know, different dars. But this verse says you have to be in Vrindavan. So what it means and how did Srila Prabhupada responded? What it means to be residing in Vrindavan. Those were the quotes that I was actually collecting. Therefore, it took time. So one is a physical Vrindavan. Second is what we call as manasik, mental Vrindavan. So what this verse indicates, yes, reside in Vrindavan. In our scenario. In fact, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he said, whoever you are, wherever you are, stay there and chant. He didn't went around and told people, okay, I've come to South India and I'm going to bring all the South Indians to Vrindavan. He sent handful of people to Vrindavan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction was, wherever you are in whatever situation, chant and remember Krishna. So how to be in Vrindavan is within our consciousness, is within our mind, and we'll take a look at it. Let's continue forward. So that's a question we're going to discuss. What does it mean for us to reside in Vrindavan? And then a little bit discussion of Vaidhi and Raganuga Bhakti also. So Prabhupada ahead quotes, again Srila Rupa Goswami states in Bhakti Rasamrit Sindhu. What he says? Seva sadhaka rupena siddha rupena chatrahi tadbhava lipsuna karya vraja lokanusarataha. In the transcendental realm of Vraja, one should serve the Supreme Lord with a feeling similar to that of his associates. One should place himself under the direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna and should follow in his footsteps. Sadhaka rupena and siddha rupena chatre. Tad bhava lipsuna. So bhava, carrying the emotions of Vrajavasis as well as render service under the guidance of a particular associate. Like that, Vraj Lokanu Sarataha. This method is applicable both in the stage of sadhana and in the stage of sadhya. So this is how Rupa Goswami described sadhana, the practice, sadhya, the goal. And then later on, it was divided into three things: sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti. Prema is sadhya. So why it was divided into three? It's not my subject now. We'll discuss in Nectar devotion. It was mentioned why they made it into three. Okay, I can make a point now because we discussed in the previous session also. So even up to bhava bhakti stage, where you're almost close to attaining, you're developed strong, you're free from anathas, all that is gone. By the way, this verse talks about you're already beyond anatha nivritti stage now. This is beginning of nishtha and then eventually ruchi. We are at this stage. This is the verse has been talking about situation. So sadhana, sadhya, there is two things, process and the goal. Then why did we define sadhana, bhava, sadhana bhakti, bhava bhakti, and prema bhakti? The difference between bhava and prema is only one. Prema is a condensed, that emotion of love for Lord, uninterrupted affection for the Lord. However, bhava bhakti does not have this, attribute in itself. And the devotee at bhava bhakti is still reaping the results of the aparadha, which goes the last. I guess in the sixth text we talked about it. In a life of a devotee, there's no concept of sin. There's a concept of aparadha. So, which is that aparad which causes the trouble? And Jiva Goswami writes, it is Vaishnava aparad. So, the offense arising because of Vaishnava aparad that goes the last, it takes the longest time, and that is what keeps the devotee at bhava rather than allowing him to attain prema bhakti. So that's how it is mentioned here because we discussed about aparad before. So I thought I'll just mention the difference between the stages. And Prabhupada says, so this is what we should do. This practice, we can even have it at the stage of sadhana bhakti. And of course, a sadhya bhakti will have it. And what is that? To be able to, render service directly under the associate who is at the ragatmika stage like that, or who is the ragatmika bhakta, uh, you know, these are eternal associates of the Lord. That's the subject matter, and Srila Prabhupada concludes. So, what is Prabhupada purpose? In brief, says he doesn't go much in elaboration here. He talks about why to train the mind, and the goal is to be able to remember the Lord so that antakale chamameva smaranukta kalevaram. How to do it? Staying in Vrindavan under the guidance of a devotee and serving intensely can facilitate and train our mind. That is the seven substance of this particular verse. All right. Now, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Prabhupada quotes his commentary also. Let's take a look at what Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur writes. Mother Kamalika, you can read now.
Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur has commented as follows upon this verse. One who has not yet developed interest in Krishna consciousness should give up all material motives and train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles, namely chanting and remembering Krishna and his name, form, quality, pastimes, and so forth. In this way, after developing a taste for such things, one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. This is the sum and substance of all instruction regarding the cultivation of devotional service. In the neophyte stage, one should always engage in hearing Krishna Katha. This is called Shravana Dasa, the stage of hearing. By constantly hearing the transcendental holy name of Krishna and hearing of his transcendental form, qualities, and pastimes, one can attain to the stage of acceptance called Varana Dasa. When one attains this stage, he becomes attached to the hearing of Krishna Katha. When one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains the stage of Smaranavastha, the stage of remembering. Recollection, absorption, meditation, constant remembrance, and trance
Hare
are the
Krishna.
five
Yeah.
items of progressive Krishna Smarana.
So you might be a little bit getting confused here. I'll explain in a short while. So these are subset of the process. Please continue.
At first, remembrance of Krishna may be interrupted at intervals, but later remembrance proceeds uninterrupted. When remembrance is uninterrupted, it becomes concentrated and is called meditation. When meditation expands and becomes constant, it is called anusmriti.
Mother, your voice is breaking, or maybe
By
my internet.
uninterrupted and unceasing anusmriti, one enters or spiritual trance. After Smarana Dasa Samadhi has fully developed, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. At that time, he can perfectly and clearly understand his eternal relationship with Krishna. This is called Samapti Dasa, the perfection of life. Chaitanya Charitam. Shall I continue, Prabhu?
We can have another devotee read it now. Who else is there? Mother Rati Manjari, go ahead.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, please accept my humble obeisances. Chaitanya Charitamrita advises that those who are neophytes to give up all kinds of motivated desires and simply engage in the regulative devotional service of the Lord according to the directions of Scripture.
In this way, a neophyte can gradually develop attachment for Krishna's name, fame, form, qualities, and so forth. When one has developed such attachment, he can spontaneously serve the lotus feet of Krishna even without following the regulative principles. This stage is called raga, bhakti, or devotional service in spontaneous love. At that stage, the devotee can follow in the footsteps of one of the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavana. This is called Raganuga Bhakti. Raganuga Bhakti or spontaneous devotional service can be executed in the Shanta Rasa when one aspires to be like Krishna's cows or the stick or flute in the hand of Krishna or the flowers around Krishna's neck. In the Dasya Rasa, one follows in the footsteps of servants like Chitraka, Patraka, or Raktaka. In the friendly Sakya Rasa, one can become a friend like Baladeva, Sridhama, or Sudama. In the Vatsalya Rasa, characterized by parental affection, one can become like Nanda Maharaja and Yashoda. And in the Madhurya Rasa, characterized by conjugal love, one can become like Srimati Radharani or her lady friends such as Lalita and her serving maids Manjaris like Rupa and Rati. This is the essence of all instruction in the matter of devotional service. Thank you, Guruji. Hare Krishna.
Raganuga Bhakti and the five ways we can relate to the Lord in Raganuga stage that was explained at the end of the paragraph here. All right, just to go through this verse, although I don't have any experience of it, but just theoretically we'll discuss this. I'll have a presentation here. What is this verse is talking about? And some questions which are often raised about it. We'll take a look at it. So just one second. Yeah. Raganuga. We can take a look. These are some of the comments. So text number 8 to 11. 8 focus on Raganuga Bhakti. And the 9, 10, 11 is from Bhava to Prema Bhakti. Generally, that is not covered as part of a discussion. We generally just read out the translation puppet. Maybe next time when we meet, we'll do some brief discussion on it. It relates with glories of Radhakund and Srimati Radharani. Maybe a little bit in theory, we can discuss that and do a recap of what all we have discussed in complete NOI. Moving forward, these are some of the notes. Difference between Vaidhi and Raganuga Bhakti, we have already discussed about it. How to move from Vaidhi Bhakti to Raganuga Bhakti. A very beautiful example. This is quoted in one of the purports in Madhya Leela, where Prabhupada gives an example of a typewriter. And he says, one has to learn to use a typewriter. Once again, the subject is moving from Vaidhi to Raganuga. Prabhupada writes, one has to learn to use the typewriter by following the regulative principles of the typing book, which means instructions of the typing book. One has to place his finger on the keys in such a way and practice. And when one becomes adept, expert, he can type swiftly and correctly without even looking at the keys. Prabhupada says. Similarly, one has to follow the rules and regulations of devotional service as they are set down by the spiritual master. Then one can come to the point of spontaneous loving service. This love is already there within the heart of everyone. That is called Nitya Siddha Krishna Premi. Spontaneous service is not artificial. And then sum and substance, what we just read, Mother Kamlika was reading, I believe, or Mother Rati Manjari was reading it. The sum and substance is, unless one has developed interest in Krishna consciousness, should give up all material motives and train his mind through the process of regulative principles. However, one who has developed attraction, attachment, who is in the advanced stages of Krishna consciousness, he is not obliged to follow the regulative principles. He doesn't have to adhere to it. Now, what it means by he is not obliged or he doesn't have to adhere, because there's no question for him to break any of those regulative principles. He's way above those lower tastes. So that principle doesn't exist for him. The principle for him at his stage, for us at Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the prominence is following the rules and regulation. But at the advanced stages, the prominence is on remembering Krishna and not paying too much attention on rules and regulations. That's the point over here, like this. That's what sum and sustenance all instruction. Raganuga, to follow Tulasi. Spontaneous devotional service in which the devotee follows in the footsteps of one of the eternal associates of Krishna in Vrindavan. Oh Tulasi, this is every morning we offer prayer. Namo Namah Tulasi Krishna Prema, Prayasi. We offer this prayer, so that's a meaning of this prayer that we every morning sing. And in fact, we should sing if in case we're not singing every day. Those of us, those of you who are congregation. And the prayer is, O Tulasi. And very interesting, Prabhupada inculcated this practice right in the morning hour before we start our chanting. Again, it is about creating a right consciousness and the right conception. And this prayer is, somebody would like to read the prayer as you see on the screen. O Tulasi, beloved of Krishna.
Indurajika Mataji, go ahead.
O Tulasi, beloved of Krishna, I bow before you again and again. My desire is to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you has his wishes fulfilled. Bestowing your mercy on him, you make him a resident of Vrindavan. My desire is that you will also give me a residence in the pleasure groves of Sri Vrindavan Dham. Thus, within my vision, I will always behold the beautiful pastimes of Shri Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower of cowherd damsels of Raja. Please give me the privilege of devotion service and make me your own maid servant. This very fallen and lowly servant of Krishna's praise, may I always swim in the love of Shri Radha and Govinda. Like this. Let's do a quick recap of the subject matter, which is mentioned in this purport, and then we'll take one or two questions which we raised during the discussion. When it is said, Tishtan Vraji, so why it is not told to every Hare Krishna follower, move to Vrindavan? Why are we staying in our respective cities? What is the meaning? So, first subject matter of this discussion was the stage of training. This subject matter of this verse is talking about somebody who is already beyond anartha nivrati. When mind is free from all disturbances. At this point of time, now his training begins of rendering service to the devotees in Vrindavan. And this is the stage where an individual moves from Vaidhi sadhana bhakti to Raganuga bhakti. Why it is said, our mind is free from disturbances? Because to render service, we have to accept and we have to at times undergo voluntary austerities. Vrindavan is hot, Vrindavan is cold, it rains heavily in Vrindavan. And if you're too much caught up with our comfort, too much affected by dualities, will not be able to stay focused and render service for long, will be too much disturbed by our own material comforts and issues. So therefore, the subject matter begins when one's mind is free from such misconceptions and dualities. That's a verse for those individuals. Now, that's the Raganuga Bhakti. What are the concepts discussed here? In this, Prabhupada says, well, whoever you are sadhaka, sadhana bhakti practitioner. What we all need to do is we need to train our tongue and the mind. Then Prabhupada talks about why to train mind, because of samskaras, it has become dangerous. It can be our friend, it can be enemy, depending if it is control and control. And then Prabhupada talks about the 4 steps how to train the mind. Let's take a training of tongue and of the mind. What is the training of the tongue? What does Srila Prabhupada say for training of the tongue? Prabhupada didn't quote the verse, but he quoted the meaning. Ataha Shri Krishna namadi na bhavat grayam indriye sevan mukhahi jivado swayam eva spurati adaha. In other words, at Vaidhi sadhana bhakti stage, it is said to be, this is the essence of all instructions. What is essence of instruction? All instructions, if let's say for us at this stage, we can say to be, to engage our tongue in always glorifying the Lord and only honoring Krishna Prasadam. That's how we train the tongue. How do we train the mind? It is mentioned we should remember 24 hours a day, or as far as possible to do it. Why to train the mind? To make it as best of friends, to purify our past impressions of many lifetimes, to help us purify our mind. Therefore, we have all this arti. We render arti, then we have prayers, then we have Bhagavatam class, we have book distribution. So many things are there Why? Just to purify our mind of our past impressions and those desires that we had. And the most important thing, to remember Krishna at the time of death. That's the goal. Now, when it comes to absorption of mind, there are two stages of absorption. First, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur advises, quoting from the pulpit, one who has not yet developed interest should give up in Krishna consciousness, should give up all material motives and train his mind. So, Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the goal, the immediate goal of the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti is discipline one's mind, to live a regulated life, to train his mind by following the progressive regulative principles. And that is done through the process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Ram Hare Hare, and remembering his Nam Rupa Guna Leela. These instructions applies to those engaged in the process of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. A question to all of you, just because I don't know what's going on with all of you. I'm just speaking to a camera. Uh, what is the purpose? So we were talking about here in this particular thing, the goal, the immediate goal of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti is to discipline one's mind by living a regular lifestyle, following the principles of chanting and other things which are prescribed. So my question to all of you is, what is the goal of work? Karma. Lord Shri Krishna speaks about Arjuna, do not give up your duty, but fight. So, what is the goal of work has been described in the third chapter and again in the fifth chapter? Hare Krishna. According to Bhagavad Gita, what is the goal of work? How should we perform our work? What is an understanding? According to the fifth chapter. Third chapter doesn't make it so clear, but fifth chapter of Bhagavad Gita talks about it. Madhav Kripapu, yes, go ahead.
Work should be done as a sacrifice to the
Work should be
Lord.
done as a sacrifice. All right. These are the verses from fifth chapter, verses 7, 8, 9, particularly 8th and 9th. All right. What else? What should be the goal of work? Mother Chintamani.
Hare Krishna Prabhu Dandavat Pranam. The goal is that we have to do our swadharma, but not look at the result. The result has to be offered to the Lord. So whether good result or bad result, as a duty, we have to do it.
Okay. As a duty, we have to do it. Fine. What else?
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Yes.
Through our work, we should worship the Lord. It should be infused with the service attitude.
Okay. Fine. The answer to this is given in, all of you are correct. It's not wrong. The answer is given in fifth chapter, verse number 11. All of you are able to see my screen? कायेन मनसा बुद्धया केवलेन्द्रियैरपि योगिनः कर्म कुर्वन्ति संगम त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये. So sangam त्यक्त्वात्मशुद्धये. Sangam means attachment to results. Tyaktva, giving up, atma shuddhe. So the goal, let's take a look at it, is atma shuddhi. That's the goal. The yogis abandoning attachment act with body, mind, intelligence, even the senses, only for the purpose of purification. So why did Lord Shri Krishna said to Arjuna, do not give up, do not take to the path of renunciation, do not go to the forest. Rather, you fight. And how do you fight? Mai sarvani karmani sanyasya adhyatma chetasah nirasha nirmamo bhatva. 330. 1 second. Yudhyasva vigadajara. Arjuna, fight. Mai sarvani karmani. Dedicating all your works unto me. Sanyas adhyatma chetasa. Sanyasya means giving up your attachment to the results. Adhyatma chetasa, with full knowledge. Nirashir, asha, without desire. Nirmamo. Nirmamo means I and mine. Bhutva refers to being yudhyasva vigata jara. And the same concept later on is discussed in 5th chapter, verse number 11. So the idea of work, if you look at it now as the definition of Bhagavad Gita, we act, or why Krishna is recommending Arjuna, you should not give up your duty. In fact, in 3rd chapter, Krishna says, well, yat ajrati shreshtas. Whatever the great man does, everyone else follows. And he quotes an example of Janak Maharaj, then he gives his own example. So the idea of work is to purify. Atma Shuddhi. So now, if somebody asks you, what is the purpose of or goal of Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti? That is what is being discussed here, is to regulate and discipline our mind. And that's what the major focus at the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. And then let's take a look ahead, because these things needs to be a little bit clear about why we are doing what we are doing. Sorry, 1 second. Where is my screen? Yeah. So moving forward, that is Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, the absorption. Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur further says, after developing a taste for such things, which means spiritual activities, then one should try to live in Vrindavan and pass his time constantly remembering Krishna's name, fame, pastimes, and qualities under the direction and protection of an expert devotee. And then comes the stage called as Raganuga Bhakti, which can be executed in any of the five rasas, which was mentioned in the last page: Shanta, Dasya, Sakhya, Vasalya, and Madhurya. And what it involves? It entails following in the footsteps of a confidential associate of Krishna under the guidance of an expert devotee. So, the very fundamental step in our spiritual practice, if I ask you, what would be the answer now? What is the primary step in the process of spiritual life? Krishna Prema is, of course, that's a goal. But what are we supposed to be focusing on? What's the goal behind following the regulative principles?
Purification.
Remembering.
Purification is of your engagement of senses. Remembrance will come, but prior to remembrance, something else has to happen. Mayapur Shashi, Madan Shashi says, training our mind. Training our mind. That's the point. And therefore, in this text number 8, which is in fact talking about Raganuga Bhakti, there Prabhupada is speaking about the subject matter of training the mind. So if I ask you now why the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, at my practice, what am I doing? My goal is to regulate and discipline our mind. Therefore, the instructions like Yukta Hara Viharasya, Yukta Cheshta Sukarmashu, all these verses become very relevant and important for all of us in our practice. Okay, so now the subject matter comes, how to train the mind, as Srila Prabhupada discussed in the purport. So basis of training is cultivating remembrance. And how do we cultivate remembrance? Prabhupada said, chanting the holy names of the Lord. And to facilitate chanting the holy names of the Lord, Tishtan Vraje, then reside in Vrindavan. So there are three things of how to train the mind. First is basis of training. Remembrance. So there are three steps for it. These are not explicitly mentioned. These are mentioned, but not explicitly. So maybe you want to pay attention here. Remembrance, the basis of training of mind is, as somebody said, cultivating remembrance of the Lord. Remembrance is facilitated by three things. First, residence. Tishtan Vraji. Therefore, this verse is saying reside in Vrindavan or any part of Vrajabhumi. 1 crore equal to 2 square miles. That's the size of Vrajabhumi. Live there under the shelter of an advanced devotee. Think of Krishna and his pastimes and beloved devotees like that. That's the way. That's the first thing, to be able to cultivate remembrance or train the mind. Then, second thing, which this verse says, what do you do while residing there? Then you render service. Service to the Supreme Lord with similar feelings to that of his associates. This is from Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's writing also. And Prabhupada's last paragraph before we started reading Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's commentary. And under a direct guidance of a particular associate of Krishna. Please go back to the book so you're aware what's going on here. Where you see the verse Seva Sadhaka Rupena. Srila Prabhupada quoted that verse. This is that verse. Well, you don't have to bring the screen. Devotees can check it on their, they should have a book. So we can continue with the presentation now. Everyone have their book. They should look in their own book. Seva Sadhaka Rupena, Siddha Rupena Chatra. In that translation of that, Prabhupada talks about it. That is service. How to render service? Feeling similar to that of his associates and under a direct guidance of particular associate of Krishna. And the third is process. So how do we cultivate that remembrance? This verse says, Tishtan Vraje. Second, rendering service. And third is process. What is a process that will allow us to remember Krishna and his eternal associates? Now, Prabhupada quotes Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, and then he describes what is a process. And that process begins with Shravana Dasha, or the stage of hearing. I hope you're understanding the connection now, why these things were mentioned. So, this is all just to train our mind and facilitate. The ultimate goal is to be able to remember the God, remember Krishna. And what is the first step of this process? Shravana Dasha, stage of hearing, which means we should cultivate this practice of hearing about Krishna. Second, then Varana Dasha, the stage of acceptance, where one becomes more eager to hear or attached to hearing of Krishna Katha. The third stage from Shravana, from Varana, acceptance, to Smarana Avastha, when one is able to chant in ecstasy, he attains this stage. And what does it mean? This chanting in ecstasy, there are 5 sub stages to it, as Bhakti Siddhanta Thakur writes. So we'll take a look at it. And then the next stage is Sampati Dasha. Sampati, the wealth, attaining the wealth, perfection life. After Smaran, or which is also known as Samadhi, the soul comes to understand his original constitutional position. So, what is this Smaran Avastha? What are the 5 items of progressive Krishna Smaran? First is recollection, being able to remember about Krishna, Krishna's Leela. Then absorption. One is recalling, a second is absorption in those Leelas. Third is meditation, where you're able to focus for a prolonged period of time. Fourth is constant remembrance. This Smarana Avastha is also called as Samadhi, and the fifth actually is called as Samadhi. These are the 5 stages within the Smarana Avastha, as Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur talks about it. And then this was in the purport. Purport talks about how Raganuga Bhakti can be executed in any of the 5 rasas. Those are Shantaras, Dasyaras, Sakyaras, Vasaliras, and Madhuriras. This is for our awareness and knowledge. However, our major goal is to be able to practice regulative principles so that our mind is getting purified and becoming more disciplined. Now, coming to some questions here. And in case if you have something to say, we can. I'm not very learned in the subject matter. Just theoretically, I know something, but we can take it. So some questions that we can take over here is, does it mean we should abandon the practice of a Vaidhi, Bhakti, and book a ticket and move to Vrindavan and find a shelter of an advanced devotee? Does it mean that? Now, as far as moving to Vrindavan, what was Prabhupada's stance is what we're going to take a look now. Secondly, Srila Prabhupada, now finding an advanced devotee and taking a shelter of advanced devotee in Vrindavan, Prabhupada had a stance, his own position on that also. For example, Srila Prabhupada himself advised not to associate with the Radha Kund Babajis. Now, if this verse says we should associate, we should move to Vrindavan, we should take association with advanced devotees, whereas Prabhupada said, yeah. And Radha Kund, as we're going to see in the verses ahead, is the highest place, and those residents of Radha Kund, particularly Babajis, they're 24/7 kind of absorbed in chanting. Prabhupada said, don't associate with them. Why? Prabhupada said, when Radhakund Babajis initiate disciples, they immediately reveal to them what is their relationship with Krishna. In the light of the above analysis, we can understand that such a procedure is not bona fide because it begins with Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti. First, begin to render service. Then later on, at the Raganuga stage, a spiritual master may decide to reveal what's your identity. The way to develop the love of the gopis for Krishna is to spread Krishna consciousness all over the world. And in this context, a very beautiful pastime comes where why what does it mean to reside in Vrindavan? What does it mean to develop that love? The highest, the devotees, the greatest devotee of Lord are the gopis. What it means to become the followers of the gopis, or what it means to be able to live in Vrindavan while being away, physically away from Vrindavan. So Kurma Prabhu, he mentions about this, and he said, while Srila Prabhupada was on his final tour to London, he was lying on the back seat on the way to the airport from Vrindavan. So his Ayurvedic doctor had given a stern warning, you should not travel, this is going to be deadly. And Prabhupada said, no, I want to travel. In fact, Prabhupada had prepared his itinerary and schedule not only up to London, but also to America. However, the devotees, everyone was requesting Srila Prabhupada, if in case you know this, this situation at this point of time, everyone was saying, Prabhupada, you should not travel. Your health is not good. You're hardly eating anything. You've just recovered somewhat, and now you want to travel. And Prabhupada, while traveling to the airport, Prabhupada said, this is called as Gopi Bhav. What is Gopi Bhav? Tava kathamritam tapta jivanam कविभिर्दितं कल्मषापहं श्रवणमङ्गलं श्रीमदाततं भुवि गृह्णन्ति ये भूरिदा जनाः. And in this verse, translation is mentioned as follows. The nectar of your words, gopis are trying to say to Krishna, and the description of your activities are the life and soul of those suffering in this material world. These narrations, transmitted by learned sages, eradicate one's sinful reactions and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. So when Prabhupada said, this is Gopi Bhav, Prabhupada quoted this shloka. So what is Gopi's mood? These narrations transmitted by learned sages eradicate one's life, one's sinful reactions, and bestow good fortune upon whoever hears them. These narrations are broadcast all over the world and are filled with spiritual power. And certainly those who spread this message are most beneficent. So what is the mood of gopis? Prabhupada quoted this verse and said, actually sharing the message of Krishna, about Krishna, with the ignorant masses or the conditional living entities, helping them revive their relationship with the Lord, is the actual mood of gopis. And that's what it means, following in the footsteps of Ragatmika Bhaktas, Anuragis, trying to follow in the footsteps by sharing the message. That was the mood of Srila Prabhupada, not that to reside in Vrindavan and to chant 64 rounds or maybe 108 rounds. Prabhupada emphasized more on preaching. Okay. So far, so good. Is it okay? Ahead, what I have collected is some of Srila Prabhupada's quotations on the subject matter of what it means to be residing in Vrindavan. Let's take a look at it. These are from the notes of devotees who have taught this subject matter before. So these are their notes. Srila Prabhupada speaks on absorption in Radha Krishna's in Vrindavan, what it means. We can have different devotees read out if that, so that will be a little more attentive. Or whoever wishes to read, we can read one slide. Please unmute yourself and read it out.
Maintain your Krishna consciousness and transcend the idea that I am Hindu, American, Brahmana, Brahmachari, Sannyasa, whatever. In Vrindavana, the only identity is I am Krishna's servant. Live in that consciousness and the real, pure, eternal Vrindavana will be yours.
So Prabhupada said Vrindavan is more of a consciousness than the physical state. And this is what the consciousness is being described here. We can be in any part of the world. And we can be in Vrindavan if we are in this consciousness where we are beyond the bodily identification, and the consciousness that I am Krishna's servant. I am the servant of the servant of the servant of Krishna. This is called as Vrindavan consciousness. This is what it means to be residing in Vrindavan. That is what it means by Tishtan Vraje, to transform our consciousness, not the address. Next devotee can read.
Hare Krishna. The more we study the pastimes of the Lord, the more we become attached to Him. This very attachment to Krishna makes one eligible to be transferred to his abode, Golok Vrindavan.
So
Summary of
again, so yeah, that's a reference. So wherever we are, what we have to do, mat chitta mat gata prana bodhiyantah parasparam. Please go ahead. Next.
To remain always absorbed in Krishna consciousness was the standard of the inhabitants of Vrindavan. If we can simply follow in their footsteps, even to a minute proportion, our lives will surely become successful.
And I guess Srila Prabhupada have created enough facility for all of us, enough service engagements for all of us to be always, or not always, or to remain absorbed in, you can say, Krishna consciousness, or to remember Krishna. We have book distribution marathon going on, then we have deity worship, and so many events are there which we can. So unless consciousness is fixed, it is very difficult. Even if we are at Vrindavan, then we might remember, what is that? Govardhan Mithai Wala. There is some Govardhan Mithai Wala, famous Govardhan Mithai Wala. I don't remember the name right now. Mother Jyoti Udesh Deepak Prabhu, you are the neighbors of Vrindavan. What is the name of that place? Okay, some issue with the internet. Yeah, remember the name of the Mithai Wala? Some famous Mithai Wala. So, we might be maybe Brajvasi, whatever is the name. So we might be there and we might be looking at, wish I could eat Golgappa or I could eat Som Papdi, etc., etc. So that is what Prabhupada is indicating here. Vrindavan consciousness or Tishtan Vaje for us means wherever we are, we should be engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, like that. Some more quotations ahead are on the subject matter need for transcendental guidance, like this. Let's take a look at it. What's the need for transcendental guidance? Somebody please read out. In order to
understand Radha and Krishna, worship them, and engage in their loving service, one must be guided by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Nityananda Prabhu, and 6 Goswamis, Lord Chaitanya's direct disciples. Hare
Next.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Only if I become attached to the instructions given by the 6 Goswamis, headed by Rupa Goswami and Raghunath Das Goswami, will it be possible for me to understand the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna.
Next.
When one develops his love for the 6 Goswamis, he can understand the conjugal love between Radha and Krishna. Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi Leela 7.7.
Next.
If one wants to be delivered by Krishna directly, he must take to the service of the residents of Vrindavana, who are unalloyed devotees of the Lord.
Hare Krishna. So that's the subject matter here. Let me just see if I have something else on this. So the subject matter of rendering service under the transcendental guidance and what it means. Yeah. To be in Vrindavan consciousness is to live in Vrindavan. Yeah, there's some more notes here. So just one quick second. I'll just come back in one quick second, please.
Hare Krishna, is anyone having an issue on the getting the assessment results? We can just discuss that.
Hare Krishna. So,
yes, Mataji.
Okay, Mataji will discuss later. Sorry.
So to be in Vrindavan consciousness is to live in Vrindavan. These are some additional quotations. When Krishna left Vrindavan from Mathura, everyone in Vrindavan fell dead out of separation from him. Similarly, we can always live in Vrindavan if we are mad after Krishna. Wherever he may be, one must always think about life in Vrajadhama. and about following in the footsteps of particular devotee in the service of the Lord. A pure devotee attached to devotion service should always remember the activities of particular inhabitant of Vraja, even though he is not able to live in Vrajabhumi. In this way, he can always think of Vrindavan. When one is actually liberated from material contamination, he can always remember an eternal devotee in Vrindavan in order to love Krishna in the same capacity. And developing such an attitude, one would always live in Vrindavan, even within his mind. That's the subject matter here. It's not necessarily indicating to a physical migration to Vrindavan, but creating that consciousness within our mind where we can always remember the Lord, remember the devotees. However, to do so before we can reach that is called largely a stage of Raganuga Bhakti. Prior to that, at Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti stage or Sadhana Bhakti stage, we need to follow the first 7 verses more diligently. Avoid Namaprad, avoid Aparad in general, you know, avoid asasanga, give up the bad habits like atihara, prayashas, prajalpa, like those. Niyam agraha, sometimes we become too attached to the rules without understanding the spirit behind it. Cultivating the good qualities, ussaha, nishadharyat, ussaha, which means enthusiasm, and rendering devotional service or whatever service is given to us, being enthusiastic about it, and simultaneously also exercising patience and having a confidence. Whenever we take up anything on our hand, we always get caught up with the result. Giving up the result consciousness, having a confidence. If I continue to serve, Krishna and Guru will be pleased. That's what the meaning of good qualities. Then, following in the footsteps. Then the art of developing loving relationship with the devotees, fourth, fifth, and sixth. How to relate with other devotees and how to avoid finding faults is a huge, huge homework which has been prescribed by Srila Rupa Goswami for the devotees at the sadhana bhakti stage. And when they are able to do that, the chanting of the holy names of the Lord will become very, what do you say, a profound experience for them. And then comes the text number 8. When mind is purified of all these contaminations, now the mind can engage itself in the service of the Lord, not because it is dictated by the instructions of Guru, but because it has become attached to Krishna and become attached to devotees of the Krishna. That is the subject matter of text 8. With that, I pause here for today. I will request all of you, 9, 10, 11, please read it out. We'll still have one class. I will give some overview of these 3 verses, which largely talks about Bhava Bhakti to Prema Bhakti. These 3 verses talk about, the different places within this material universe, the types of human beings, and then ultimately the highest place, which is the most favorite place or the most auspicious place in the whole creation. That's all that these 3 verses talk about. And finally, conclude with one should reside in such a place always, like this. That we'll see next time. So please do read out these 3 verses. We'll have a short overview of it. Just again, theoretical presentation. And then maybe we can do a recap of what we've discussed or take some questions, which means today being a very good 16th December, 23rd December, we conclude and we give you a New Year vacation. And then we can have exam in 2024. We start 2024 on a very auspicious note. Upadeshamrit, including Upadesha Saram, by concluding the studies of Upadeshamrita. So is that okay for all of you? Some of you had requested for a little extension. So it just so happened automatically because I couldn't come last week. So you have an extension now. And the last date, we can take a poll. Should it be 6th or should it be 13th? I'm open to that. Hare Krishna. So with that, we conclude here this discussion on text number 8. Thank you for your kind attention. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada ki. Before we conclude, can we just recite this verse? This is one of the verses that we should definitely be memorized. Tannama Rupa Charitadi Suketana Smrityo Kramena Rasana Manasya Niyochya Tesham Vajeta Danuragi Jahananugami कालं नयत् अखिलम् इति उपदेशसारम्। जगद्गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय, श्रील रूप गोस्वामी की जय, उपदेशामृत की